Welcome to MSL Talk with Tom Caravela, a podcast specifically designed for MSLs and all things field medical. Hey guys, welcome to the podcast. Today, my guests are J.R. Riscala, Director of MSLs at Synovian, and Patrina Pellet, VP of Strategic Accounts at Medivoke. And we talk about the many ways that COVID-19 has made medical affairs and MSLs better. Awesome conversation. These guys are great. Hope you guys like it. Hey, JR. Hey, Patrina. Thanks for joining me. How are you guys?
Hey.
Good morning. Hey.
So happy to have you. You're like two of my favorite people back on the podcast. This is awesome.
Thank you.
So I love your topic because there's so much right now. There's so much talk about COVID and all the negative stuff. And by all means, there's a lot of negative stuff. And you know, God help everybody that's struggling right now or lost loved ones. But the focus of this podcast is going to be to talk about how there have been some positive things that have come from this as it relates to medical affairs in the MSL profession. So before we get into that, why don't you guys do some quick intros? Patrina, why don't you go first?
Awesome. Hey, everybody. Thanks for having me again, Tom. I'm excited to be here again because this is probably the best podcast ever. So for those of you that don't know me, my name is Patrina Pellet. I'm the VP of Strategic Accounts at Medivoke. We are a full service medical affairs strategy consulting firm. So if you ever want to talk strategy or data or insights or any of these cool things that we see medical affairs doing now, definitely reach out to me. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, send me a LinkedIn connection request as well. Your turn, JR.
Hi, everyone. Tom. Thanks for having me, buddy. We've known each other for a long time and glad to be on your podcast, which I watch on a regular basis. It's probably one of the best I've seen so far because it's so pertinent and so focused on what we do every day. This is J.R. Riscala. I'm the director of the Neurology Medical Science Liaison for the West Region at Synovian. Been in the industry for over 35 years, been in medical for over 20 years. And I'm just glad to be on, Tom.
Yeah, thank you guys. I appreciate your kind words, and you guys are the best. So let's get into it. I know you guys co-authored an article recently, talks about some of this stuff. So let's get into it. What are some of the trends that you guys are seeing, in medical affairs as it relates to the pandemic, and what are some of the positives that you guys might be seeing?
JR, should I start?
Go ahead.
I would say that one of the major trends that we're seeing is in the way that MSL teams engage with customers, both internal and external customers. And one major trend that we're seeing is that more KOLs are online now. Mm-hmm. So this has really thrown a wrench in how MSLs engage. And so there's this big trend towards creating new engagement plans. JR, what do you have to add, or what would you like to add?
No, I agree with you, Patrina. In our profession now, and obviously with the pandemic, everybody seems to go virtual. And a lot of our meetings are done virtually on a regular basis. And physicians, now that they're also practicing telemedicine with their patient because of COVID, they are electing more to interact with us virtually, thus allowing us to spend more time with them, share our data, answer any question they have, and become a valuable resource. And obviously, they can reach us anytime with a click of a button on a mouse on a computer. They can connect with us, and then we can interact together. So it has created a valuable opportunity for us to interact with our KOL on a daily basis.
Yeah. It's been such a game changer. All of a sudden, we've been thrown into this situation where we all have to adapt to technology and video, and because we have no choice. So, and that's been great in a lot of ways. I mean, I miss the face-to-face, interaction, but for now, this is all we have. But now what happens? So this is what we're doing now, but what would you say is going to happen in the, what is engagement going to look like in the future?
You know, Tom, I think we are learned a valuable lesson with the pandemic. We focused more on the technology. We're adopting it. We are learning more and more how to become comfortable, how to engage online, how to read faces, how to use emotional intelligence, and so on. So I think our role is going to be more of a hybrid role. I feel the future is going to be more of us doing more of virtual connection than actually physical, because everybody is getting so comfortable with it. Plus, you get more time, and you, by respecting the physician time, you get on their schedule to talk whenever you need to. And I know from a lot of surveys that we have seen, MSL are spending much more time with their physician online than actually when they are face-to-face, because they have that opportunity to interact and they have the time to do it. Katrina?
Yeah, definitely. Everybody was saying 2020 is virtual. Right now, I think what everybody is saying is 2021 and beyond is going to be hybrid. So we're seeing a lot of teams looking into what the engagement model will look like in the future. And I've been hearing a lot of folks saying things like, oh, we can expect it to be about 50-50 going forward. So 50% of the time, MSLs will spend in virtual interactions, and then 50% of the time in face-to-face. So if you're an MSL listening, be sure that you are working on your virtual engagement skills if you're not already a pro at it. I've been talking with a lot of folks around things like trying to better read body language and try to recreate those face-to-face interactions in a virtual environment. So, for example, looking at what's in your KOL's background, right? Like you see a bike in the back in my webcam. So using that to create this better connection, like you would in a face-to-face interaction. JR, what have you guys been doing in terms of kind of virtual / face-to-face for the future?
Well, I cannot disagree with what you're saying, because from my experience, I've been in marketing and sales and medical, and you're absolutely correct. When we are engaging physically, I always look around the office to see, do they like fishing? Do they like skiing? Do they have a family picnic? And talking about your example with the bike, it's a great start for a conversation when you are online. But more and more, it's about the emotional intelligence and respecting the time of people, and know when you need to stop. And when you're presenting, always ask for feedback. Don't just be regurgitating all the data and just going on and on without allowing people to stop and say, hey, what do you think about that? And the way we are now going all virtual, I think it's going to be more of the future. One, it's cost saving in a way of traveling. And you can imagine, and Tom, you know too, you travel a lot as well as us, and Katrina. We spend so much time in hotels, on planes, sitting in lounges at the airport. Just amazing how with this pandemic, we are learning more to adopt to being able to interact virtually and also save money at the same time.
Yeah. And another positive is being able to reach a wider variety of KOLs. So when MSLs were traveling all the time, they were really focusing on their top KOLs. And now with a little bit more time, they can start reaching more community level KOLs, or KOLs that are rural and folks that they were never talking to before. Tom, I think I cut you off. What were you going to say?
No, that's good stuff. I mean, you know, it's funny. Like when you guys first brought this topic to me, I'm like, okay, well, yeah, there's positives and everything. But then when I read your article and I started to really think about it, you guys are bringing up some really good points. I mean, we're obviously MSLs are, you know, the community has established this new mode of communication. It's also establishing new skill sets for MSLs. JR talk about emotional intelligence. So now MSLs are evolving into these digital platforms, and it's developing these whole new skill sets. It's because of the travel and the fact that we're talking about hybrid scenarios. You know, maybe it's improving quality of life where people aren't living out of a suitcase all the time, and they're able to be more efficient because, you know, they have other means of, you know, engaging and getting their job done. And now, Bertrina, as you said, it's giving you the ability to expand the reach as well.
Although I have to say, MSLs and MSL leads are travelers. So there's been a lot of grumbling around it. Like everybody's saying, well, I'm ready to go back in the field.
So, and that's interesting because we're using it and we're saying, well, this could be a positive. Maybe it's not really a positive. Maybe that's people are really chomping at the bit to get back out there and see folks. And I can't wait to get back out there. Yeah. I need to see people. I'm a hugger. I got to see people.
Oh, the pandemic must be killing you.
I'm a hugger, man. So I think that we have to look at both sides of this. I personally think that, yes, there's going to be a place for digital engagement, virtual engagement, whatever we're calling it, in the future. But I really think that companies are going to want to have their MSLs out there front and center, FaceTime, face-to-face interactions. I think we're going to get back to that. I think conferences are going to come back. Scientific meetings are going to come back. So all of that's still going to be there. So hopefully, do you think that's what the future is going to look like?
I do. But I think it's going to have face-to-face with this virtual component. So MSLs and MSL teams are going to have to strategize around things like congresses, like you brought up, Tom. Mm-hmm. You'll be in person, but now you'll likely have a population of KOLs that are not there, right? Mm-hmm. So you're going to need a strategy around how you're going to engage them as well. JR, what do you think?
I agree with you, Bertrina. And back to you, Tom. Everybody's itching to get out, including myself. We try to hold our team and say, for your safety and for the safety of people around you. And obviously we have a lot of institution and offices and clinic that right now are not accepting industry to come in because of the pandemic. But I agree, in the future, it's gonna probably be split. Think of how comfortable now physicians are in being in their office and attending something like AAN or AES or some major meeting. I foresee, and maybe I'm wrong, but in the future, they're going to be this kind of a split. People who cannot travel, now that the industry and all these meetings have been virtual and being comfortable using technology, I think there will be offering for both ways. You can attend physically or you can attend virtually at a reduced price. And this way you don't have to travel and spend all that money. The technology is there. We're already using it. It's working. So I think people are going to take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's definitely going to be an opportunity. And I think we're already seeing this trend, right? MSL leads or medical affairs leads are thinking about, all right, how are we going to leverage this? We already see this positive of reaching more KOLs. Now, how are we going to continue this into the future?
Yeah. And one thing to add to that, Bertrina, is the KOL engagement. I know physically, when we are out, we usually get to see maybe one person, then run to the next building to see the next person. Right now, I'm seeing more and more of a group discussion. A whole department will come together and get on a Zoom call. It's give you that opportunity for a much wider selection of people that you can share your information with and ask question and answer question. So it's been working pretty well.
Yeah, this is you bring up another really good skill set that MSLs of the future are going to need. So you'll have your face-to-face, your virtual face-to-face, your small group meetings, and now your virtual group meetings. Yeah. And so how are you going to facilitate those, encourage conversations, have it be interactive, and of course, gather insights. So lots of cool things happening.
It's cool stuff, but it shows that the role is evolving in such a way that this is going to affect everything moving forward, in the sense that, like JR, when you're interviewing candidates for future positions, doesn't that change the way you're going to now interview and the skills you're going to be looking for when you're talking to candidates?
Absolutely. Virtual skills now are becoming part of the MSL role, to be honest. In the last few months, and I've been looking at a candidate which we just hired recently, and I can imagine sometimes the frustration of having to do all this video and phone screening and talk to so many candidates, but only see them online. And then you bring up the other skills in yourself to look at the body language and to look for red flags. And it's not easy when you are face-to-face with a person. But when you're doing it on a video, you start looking for other things. And it's been challenging, but also it's been a great learning experience for the future.
Yeah.
I've heard along those lines, I've heard some hiring managers will kind of fake bad connections to see how the candidate will respond, because this is a good way to know how they'll handle a bad internet connection with a KOL. And so, or introducing other little things like hiccups into the process as an interview mechanism to see how they'll do on the job.
Wow.
So if you're interviewing, watch out. Prepare for the internet to break.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a little tricky. There's some trickery involved there, but it kind of makes sense. I mean, you want to see the person be able to think quickly on their feet and be able to overcome that. What else, like what other skills do you think are going to be mandatory for MSLs as we look into the future now that we've gone through this?
I think, like I mentioned before, communication skills is going to be very important. Utilizing the technology, and what we have done in our company recently in the past few months, we really brought in vendors in to show our people how to interact and what capability and competency they need when they are virtually, what they have to watch for, what they have to not say or say, and so on. And also the way you present yourself. And back to virtual hiring. I mean, imagine you're hiring virtually, you're interviewing candidate, and then they show up and they're like a T-shirt or what have you, instead of dressing up like in real physical and face-to-face interview. I mean, how you want to interject yourself when you're on camera, you should be doing exactly as you would do face-to-face. So we are invested in a lot of resources and technologies for our people to add to these competencies so they can work as hybrid, if that the case may be in the future, and be ready to be able to interact and engage our KOLs at any level.
Yeah. So what would you say, Patrina, you've been in the industry for a long time. I mean, you have your finger on the pulse of a lot of what's going on. When do you think we pull out of this? And what's the trajectory looking into 2021? I know that nobody knows for sure, but as we look into it, what do you expect to happen? And what's your advice?
So I will just parrot or repeat what I'm hearing from a lot of different pharma companies right now. Everybody wants to get back in the field. They're chomping at the bit to go back and travel. And initially, everyone was saying, oh, summer 2021. And the vaccine has been great. It's been giving so much hope. At the same time, we're also seeing that it's slower than anticipated and there are other problems. So now I'm hearing teams planning to get back in the field starting in 2022. And so I could probably hear this collective sigh out from the listeners, especially for those that are missing traveling. But we'll just have to play it by ear. And I wouldn't be surprised if we're grounded for 2021. JR, what's your opinion on this?
I talked to a lot of MSL leaders like myself and different folks, and each company is looking at the future and looking at the situation today and looking where the vaccine is. I think the population who is going to be vaccinated is going to take a while. The logistical issues with getting vaccine to everybody, it's going to be a while. We've been pushing our date of engagement and being back in the field almost every other month. Right now, I'm hearing sometime early to midsummer, but I agree with you, Patrina. I think we probably won't be back in the field to probably early 2022 for sure. Just to be on the safe side.
I was hoping like Q3, Q4.
We all are.
We all get together at a conference,
hugging
it out. So thinking that might be the case, that it's later rather than sooner. So how do MSLs stay on track? With all the changes and all the uncertainty, is it just business as usual, embrace the technology and just keep doing what you're doing? Is it prepare for something else? What advice do you guys have to help MSLs to really stay focused, stay on track and get through it?
What we have been doing, Tom, is actually really revisiting our objective, our goals for the year, where we are, what we have missing, what gaps are out there, what needs for new resources. My team has been the last 2-3 months building on revamping and revising resources and adding new data to it that's becoming more available, making things more interactive, especially with our slide deck, so people who are watching and you're sharing the data with are enjoying your presentation. We created survey because in the past, when you're physically facing a physician and sharing something, you would ask the question you need to. Now we're more going digital. We create this Survey Monkey and Survey Link that we send after each presentation to get feedback, get more insights about the data we're presenting that's going to help the physician and the patient we serve. We're also looking internally on things that we have left behind. A lot of clinical studies we have to look back to and try to revise certain protocol, working with our investigator. We've done a lot of virtual journal club, which not in the past we have been able to do, but now with the technology, it's afforded at that time in the evening when the physicians are done with their work to sit down and share an article and analyze it and answer any question they have. So the virtual world has really created a lot of opportunity for us to reflect on where we were and how we're going to move into the future, and added a lot of more resources and capabilities.
Awesome. Good stuff. Patrina,
Yeah.
how about you?
Along those lines, I think one of the really big benefits of the pandemic, especially for medical affairs, has been pausing and reflecting on what we're doing and why, and really thinking about if we're doing the right things, if they make sense, and looking to the data and saying, what is the data showing us? So this is going to continue to be a good skill. So for MSLs out there looking forward, take the time to reflect and think about what you're doing. Don't just be busy to be busy. I think that's going to be very critical. Also, get really friendly with data. Things have changed so quickly with this pandemic. Everything is different now. So don't look hard at what you think you know and your assumptions, and look what the data can tell you and how, if you're right or what you should be doing. So it's kind of along the lines of being a strategic thinker, thinking creatively about problems, and also just being open-minded, right? Things will probably be different again in 6 months and in a year. And so I think those would probably be the key things I would highlight for MSLs and anybody really to be successful in the future.
And if I remember correctly, so you guys wrote this article about this topic, and there were six things, right? Did we hit all 6? Did we get everything? Did I miss it? Did we miss any?
Mainly, but we wouldn't want to take all the thunder away from the article, right? Like
shameless plug to the
yeah
to the article. No, it was very good. It was well written. It really made me think. Again, you're not thinking along those terms because there's been so much that's happened that hasn't been positive. Yeah. But we've really been able to benefit in all the ways we just talked about. And others. So yeah, I would invite folks to seek out the that article. I'm sure they could find it on LinkedIn. And Patrina, didn't you just launch a YouTube site or channel?
Oh yeah, yes. While we're talking about shameless plugs, I just launched a YouTube channel called Medical Affairs Strategy Hacks. So this is a place where medical affairs professionals and leaders can go to help work on their strategic thinking skills. So I'm producing a bunch of content in bite-sized pieces. Please go over there, check it out, subscribe, share your thoughts, and I'll be posting this more and more on LinkedIn. So if we're not connected, please be sure to connect with me. And you can also find the article that JR and I just wrote there.
All right. And we actually launched a YouTube channel as well. So while you're on YouTube, just type in MSL Talk.
Yeah, subscribe to all these channels.
You got all resources coming at you in video. Yeah. This podcast will be on our YouTube channel, so you can see us in action. So what about you, JR? What's next for you? Anything big coming up, or just vacation plans?
I wish. There's so much going on, but one thing I want to add is this pandemic has really brought people close to each other.
For sure.
And
For
I cannot imagine, I mean, even with my team, being able to have once in a while Zoom happy hour in the evening, or watch the dog fly by, or the cat jump on the desk, or be able to engage on regular basis. I mean, we're all zoomed out.
Yeah.
And meetings after meeting after meeting, but it definitely brought people together, and we are more and more becoming as an extended family. And you get to know the people you work maybe 3-4 times a year. Now you're working more efficiently and more virtually. You get to know these people much more better.
For sure. That's great. Any
I would
final
add-
words, Patrina?
Oh yeah, I would add to that. I've been hearing from MSLs that in many cases, it's bringing their relationships with their KOLs more together. So one MSL was telling me that she in the past wasn't always able to really sit down and talk through the data and look through the slides. And now with Zoom and the virtual meetings, she's having these really great in-depth one-on-ones where they really go through the data and discuss it. And so for many MSLs, it's helping build the relationships with the KOLs as well.
I couldn't agree more, Katrina.
Awesome. Hey, you guys are the best. Definitely did not disappoint, as always.
Tom, JR and I always like to ask the question of the host of all the podcasts that we attend or that we're guests on. What has been one of the most positive things for you personally because of the pandemic?
Personally and professionally is this podcast. It just so happened, coincidentally, accidentally on purpose, that I launched this podcast in March of 2020.
Oh.
And because of that, I think a lot of people who were used to traveling and weren't able to travel as much there's been a lot of focus on development, whether it's professional development, career development, team development. So this podcast, which by the way, and this isn't a plug, this is just statistics, we're ranked in like 33 countries. We were like number 2 in the rankings in Portugal under the careers category. Go figure. So I want to, first of all, thank everyone that listens to this podcast all over the world, here in the US, and just say that I feel very, very blessed and fortunate that it just timing wise, it was launched at the right time because it really got out there and it's helping so many people. And I wish I had a way to keep track of all the people that have notified me that they've just gotten a new MSL position or landed their first MSL position, and feel like a lot of it had to do with the ability to learn so much through this podcast. I wish I had a number on that, but it's quite a bit. It's pretty big. So that's what I'm grateful for.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that's a really good point and a great positive to highlight, right? You were able to really grow your podcast because of the pandemic and people being, less travel, more time. Yeah. And I have to say, we did another podcast last May, and I still get LinkedIn connection requests from it. People are like, hey, I heard you on Tom's podcast. Can we connect? I always say no. No, I'm kidding.
No, you do not.
I don't.
That's not true.
I always connect. So yeah, this has been, I think the growth of this has been amazing, but it's just a reflection of how useful it is for folks.
And I was going to say, Tom, I mean, it's really your dedication, your commitment, and the valuable resource and information you provide on your podcast, the guests that you have, including ourselves. I think it's really valuable for people and MSL for their career, and even anybody who wants to get into that role, just to listen to your podcast and really understand the role and how valuable is the information provided. I think it's tremendous service to our entire community. So
thank you. I honestly can't take credit. It's my guests. You guys and all my guests are what makes it so special. I'm just here kind of, navigating the conversation, but it's been really fun. Thank you guys for coming on, and you guys are always welcome. Let's do this again. And I appreciate you. You guys are the best. So, and thank you everybody that's been listening and supporting us. So, hey, stay safe out there and
get vaccinated.
Yeah, get vaccinated and let's get through this, man. Let's get through it.
Yeah. And hopefully see everybody soon in real life.
That's right.
Can't wait.
Okay, guys. Hey, thanks again.
Thanks,
Enjoy the
Tom.
rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for listening to the show. If you've enjoyed it, please subscribe so that you don't miss episodes in the future. And feel free to leave a rating or a review or a comment. Thanks again, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.